Hello, hello, my friends. Hello, hello, hello. Um, this is Bobby. I know it's been a minute, and I just want to thank you for being here. Thank myself for getting my butt in here after it's been like a month, I think, or longer. I generally do less in the summer because things are busier. But this break was unintentional. I am renovating my house, so it has been chaos. And like there was no office. Even now, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see a bit of. I tried to clean up, but it doesn't look the way I want it to. But here I am because the guest that I have for you today is really awesome, and I didn't want to make her wait any longer. But what I am learning in renovations, and I'm sure any of you who've renovated your house have learned this, that it's just kind of you just feel really like unsettled. Like, where did I put that? I'd have no idea. I've no, I had no clue where anything was for at least 2 weeks. There were strange men in my house at all times. Um, yeah, and I just didn't feel like talking to anybody. Like they would leave and I would just kind of sit on my couch and stare at the roof. Seriously, stare at the ceiling because I didn't realize how much how much just like spatial energy that it required to have um just people banging on stuff all day. And like I didn't know when they were coming or when they would show up. And my God, I didn't know. I didn't know. But it's almost done and it's beautiful. And I renovated my bathroom I want it to look like a conceptual forest. So there's like green vertical tile and pebble floor. And it's been worth every moment of me staring at the ceiling. Um, yeah, and I thank the photo gods or whoever created my schedule that things haven't been that wildly busy, that this has just kind of smoothly gone into my days. Like, I'm like, okay, I don't know who's coming or when, and I'm just gonna take my dogs out. And on the topic of dogs, as you all know, I have two dogs, Linda and Harlan. And Harlan, the darlin, is 13 and he is an old man. He is suddenly an old man. And that has been a really uh, painful transition for me. Um, I'm trying not to cry because he's still here. He is the greatest gift I think I've ever experienced in my life because he really teaches you. If anybody who has a dog, and this is my first like senior dog, um, you just get to be with them. You're not doing anything. Like normally, like we're running through the forest together, and that hasn't happened, and it won't ever happen again. Um, we can meander, but he's now nicknamed Mr. Stumbles because he just kind of doesn't have the footing. You can tell his back is really sore. He won't take anything, like any medication that I try to like give to him. Nope, he won't take it. And then he will not take the food associated with that where I tried to deceive him. So we're down to like bacon and sausages and eggs. And that's all he'll take if he feels like it. So it's humbling and it's a gift because it just makes you slow down and just be with him, like there's no agenda. It's like, how you feeling today? And we just go for a little walk. So that's my life right now. My 4 minutes of me telling you all about my life. My guest today is a really wonderful woman. She reached out to me about 2 months ago, and because of this renovation business happening in my house, we've had to reschedule a few times because I didn't know if somebody was going to be hammering something or like sawing things or like where my computer was. But she's here today. She's going to teach us some really, really, really valuable things about a big tilt and shift in her life. I won't tell you what that is. I'm going to let her talk about it. But she has some exceptionally powerful messages that are going to help you become a better photographer in working with neurodiverse people. So she is a family photographer, and now she's sort of moving into weddings, which normally we kind of start the other way, right? We start with weddings, then we start doing family because those families, or those wedded people start to have families. But she's gone the other way, and she has tons of really enlightening, compassionate information for us to work through today, and some really hopeful and inspiring messages about working with neurodiverse people. And I'm delighted to talk with her. I haven't specifically spoken with photographers who specifically work with neurodiverse people. And so this is a really beautiful opportunity for all of us to improve our skills and our understanding and our compassion and our ability to communicate, and all of that really good stuff that makes us better people and better business owners, better artists. So welcome to the podcast, Stacey Fiesel. Hi, Stacey.
Hello.
Welcome to the Tilt and Shift Photography Business Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out. I'm curious what made you want to reach out to me? Because normally I'm like looking for folks, and then you popped on my radar, and this is perfect.
Yeah, thank you. I stumbled upon your podcast, I don't know, a few months ago, and I've just loved listening to how genuine your conversations are, because you don't they feel more unfiltered than the other conversations I hear, and I just love that. And I was like, and plus my tilt and shift definitely falls into all of my
Yeah,
life,
yeah.
right? And so I was like, I really want to see if we could connect and just chat. So that's why I reached out to you.
And
I
we
love
did,
your
and the
genuineness.
renovation gods try as they did. I think we rescheduled, or I
Yeah.
rescheduled 4 times.
Yeah, you're fine. I mean,
Yeah,
life was challenging for me, so each time you schedule, I'm like, this is good, that's fine.
yeah.
We'll go.
You
And
know
no
what?
problem.
I actually never mind when someone reschedules for me, because it feels like a free hour.
Yeah.
Like, as
Yeah.
long as they're willing to reschedule, I'm like, that's cool. Like, now I have an hour to just go do something that I didn't think I had time to do.
Yeah. Because you had that bubble scheduled. Yeah, I totally understand that. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's stressful because then it's going to catch up another time, but it all works out the way it's supposed to, I think. So,
If you live in the moment, this
yeah.
moment.
Right. Things I am learning.
Yes, yes, me too. I was talking a little bit in your intro um about how having a senior dog sure does make one live in the moment without like no plans. Because if you think that he's going to eat well today, or if he's going to go somewhere today, or you're going to be able to go somewhere today, um that might be different than what you expect. And sometimes it's nice to just sit with them, like we
Mhm.
can't do that. So let's just sit. And I know that like we cannot necessarily compare kids with dogs, but
A little bit,
there
really.
are there some overlaps, Stacey?
I always joke that our first dog was training wheels for kids because she like,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, very demanding and yeah.
I guess it becomes a little bit different in terms of like the um like educating and like communication, like stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't
No, for
change too
real.
much, or changes quite a bit.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, Stacey, you were saying that there was a big tilt in your life, as so you had been a photographer for how long when this tilt happened?
So to be to be fair, I started so I went to school for painting and photography. So I had that and I did like real estate photography. And then after I had kids, then that's when I decided I can take pictures of people. They don't scare me as
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Like,
Yes.
and I guess the tilt for me was recognizing that I was leading my sessions in a way that was different from other photographers because I just naturally built my sessions around what my daughter was needing.
Yeah.
And when I started
Like,
talking to other photographers, I'm like, wait, you don't do that? Wait, what? And so that was kind of so I kind of had already tilted, but I didn't realize it because my whole world was tilted.
right. And so when did you discover that because I mean, from what I understand, kids kind of teach their parents how to become parents, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what was your daughter teaching you?
Uh, you know when you hold a mirror up and you realize that they're
Oh
a
yeah.
lot like you, and it's
Yeah.
you can't tell her to do something because she'll dig in her heels and say no. And that's a but yeah, so a lot of patience, a lot of creative thought. And then I mean really one of the biggest things she has taught me is to accept people for who they are, where they are, and what they're experiencing right now, and that it's not something that we can actually understand because we're not in their shoes, but we can learn to be empathetic and sympathetic to it. That was a huge break for me in our occupational therapy journey. I was really trying to get her to be fixed. I wanted her sensory issues gone, and I wanted her to wear clothes like a normal kid because I literally, so she would wear, I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm starting at the beginning or the end,
No,
but
no,
in the
this is
middle
great because
somewhere, but
she's neurodiverse, right? Like
she's neurodiverse. Yeah.
when did you discover that, or like when did it
Yeah.
become clear that things
Yeah.
were gonna be different for
So,
her?
sensory issues really became evident around age 2. And my brother is also on the spectrum. And so I started drawing a lot of parallels. But the problem is it's really, really challenging to get kids diagnosed with autism or ADHD or things like that when they're so young because everyone's like, oh, they're just being a kid.
Right.
But we started kind of coaching her on how to interact, which also then made it harder when we actually wanted to get a diagnosis because she knew enough to make eye contact enough um, that getting the diagnosis, actually, we didn't officially get the autism diagnosis until just this last year, but we've been operated under, she had ADHD, anxiety, um, and her sensory processing diagnoses since she was 5. So it's been about, yeah, 7 years now with that. And then, yeah, but we finally found a doctor that specializes in diagnosing women and
Oh, yeah,
girls
yeah.
because they present it differently than boys do.
Uh-huh.
And so finally found someone and the question I kept running through my head is why do I care? Why do I care if she has this rubber stamp of like this is the diagnosis? And really it boiled down to school. We needed resources from school and them to be able to honor her sensory needs, and they weren't. And that was a journey that we've been on this year, big journey. So we needed that diagnosis. Just, I mean, we didn't care, right? She is who she is, and that's the acceptance part of it. But um, yeah, when sometimes you just need people because autism is recognized as a disability, and so that opens up a few more doors when you're trying to get support.
Uh-huh.
So,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Because our
Um,
world is so constructed around expectations, right? Like this
yes.
is this is what you do. This is how you act. This is how you talk. This is how you behave in a photo session. This is how you, but what is that?
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully, none of us are actually like that. Like
No.
those are just expectations that we've all agreed to adhere to. And
Hmm.
this is something that I really love about neurodiverse people is like they're like, no, I'm not doing that. And you're
Yeah.
like, because it
Like,
really shines a light on the bullshit that we do. And they're like, why? Like that doesn't I don't
yeah.
like it, doesn't make me feel comfortable or whatever. And sometimes I've never even questioned. And then they show you that you're like, oh, you're right. Like this
Why,
is
why do I care about that?
do I care?
Why do I care? And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no, that was definitely a large portion of it for me is why am I so focused on what she wears and fitting in and I mean in a sense we're in that struggle right now. She's gonna be 13 in December and she's been wearing the same leggings for the last like 4 years and they're full
Yeah.
of holes. And I'm
Yes.
like, okay, so we need to start this journey. And like,
Yeah.
I get that you don't care, but I need I need you not to be full of holes the entire year. Like we're hitting the end of this life of the leggings, like
And what's that process like for her? How does she prepare for change? I imagine that that's probably the thing that's hard, right? Is changing or is there something else?
yeah, yeah, no, you're totally right on. And that absolutely falls into photos and things like that too, is preparing for that transition. Like, hey, I've been talking to her like, great, this is the week we've got to be um if you can make it a game, it's always more fun, right? At everything in life. Like if you want me to eat healthy, you better make it a game because that's going to be the way to do it, right? So yeah, we're going to be a curious detective and we're going to go find the softest clothes at the mall and we're going to check it off and rate them. And like, so if you turn it into a different way of approaching it instead of you have to, they will dig in the heels. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like if you say it's time for new clothes, no, it's not.
Right.
Not gonna. Nope. No, thank you. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's preparing that. I've been letting her know, like, hey, this transition's coming for a month now, and we're
Yeah.
about at that week of shopping, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. The other thing that's really cool about it is that it also makes us see how um what's the right word? How we like expect people to do things in a certain amount of time. So we've created these expectations that like I'm going to tell you to do this and you're just going to do it so that I don't have to like quote unquote waste my time
Yeah.
trying to convince you to
Yeah.
get different leggings.
Yeah.
Whereas like what if it was the other way? What if it was a game? Like what if it was something, an experience that we could have together, that we could communicate about this and that we could like go on these. How much more fun is it to go on a scavenger hunt than it is to for your mom to just tell you what to do?
It is so much more fun. And you know, I will admit I went to ChatGPT this morning. I was like, how do I like what can I do to help her prepare for this? And it helped me create a checklist on
Oh,
like, and
nice.
I let it know. I was like, so her enthusiasm, so her hyper focus is, and that's how you can always ask a polite way of like, what is your kid obsessed with? You could say, what are your kids' enthusiasms?
Yeah.
Um, Dragons and dogs. So it helped me write the scale of like, is this a dragon scale itchy out like versus a soft fluffy dog, you know? So it helped
Nice.
bring it into yeah, and I was like, this is awesome. So it's so much more creative. I'm actually she hasn't seen the checklist or the scavenger list yet, so I'm excited to show her that, and I'm hoping that that will. But yeah, it's kind of bringing that playfulness to all of our life where we move in such a fast directed we don't slow down to think how we can have fun. And I do think that that's been both a challenge and
Mhm,
a joy, right? Like if we sit and make life fun, it's
mhm.
something we want to do more. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done a lot of this learning through trial and error? Or like are there resources that you turn to as a parent that have really kind of been illuminating for you?
Yeah. A lot of it has been because when your kids are young, you get to sit in with most of the like counseling sessions and stuff. So we've done occupational therapy, counseling, and a couple rounds of occupational therapy, and the therapists have different ways that they approach. And that was, um, yeah, I'll come back to that. But answering the question, some of the resources, doctors will throw a bunch of resources at you, and it's overwhelming, and it's really hard to figure out like
Yeah.
what to do. And where to start with it. So I feel there are a lot of podcasts, and actually that was one of the ways that I stumbled on your podcast is the Tilt Parenting podcast
Oh, wow.
is one of my resources. And then when I was searching photography podcasts, and since it was Tilt and Tilt, it like put those two together, and I was like, oh wait, I really love listening to her. And so
Thank you,
that was
algorithm.
yes, right. It worked out really well. But yeah, Tilt Parenting podcast. Debbie Reber talks a lot about supporting kids like ours and being neurodiverse affirming, and that's like it's such a hard journey to be on is accepting your kid. And I try to be as open as I am about our journey so that other people can find um I'm not sure if I want to say hope, but they know that there's different levels, there's different stages. That I definitely had that stage of I want to fix my daughter, and that was where the occupational therapist looked at me and was like, you need to just accept her for who she is, and these are the clothes that she's going to wear. And that might have been one of the most embarrassing and humbling moments of my life, but it needed to happen, right? It needed to happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's been hard.
It was good though. Like sometimes you need those hard
Yeah,
truths, and that's when
it's
you
true.
start digging in. And that was, and during the pandemic, I homeschooled her, and she's given me permission to talk about everything, and actually my younger daughter too, because we found out that she also is on the spectrum. So now I have two of these lovely neurodiverse kids
Yeah,
officially.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
So when did you see it start seeping into your photography? What was that like?
Yeah, I had so many. I scheduled all of my sessions in the morning, which is weird because most photographers will do in the afternoon, but I was just setting my life up and my photography sessions up like how my daughter would thrive. And the morning kids are less anxious. They have more of the ability to focus and engage and things like that versus unraveling as the stress happens during the day. So I had all these morning sessions, and it felt like every family that was booking with me had a similar vibe. Their kids were just as energetic and just as quirky. And I don't know if that was what I portrayed on my website. I didn't realize that at the time of how I talked or how I approached things. Um, and sorry, trying to think of how to phrase it, but I had so many people praising me for what I was doing and referring me out to their friends. I didn't understand why. I just thought I was doing what every photographer does. And it didn't happen until I was at a conference and talking to other people that's when I put together. I'm like, oh no, other people only do golden hour sessions. And that's a hard no for my kid. We tried it once and she was manic and it was a mess.
Yeah.
And yeah, like the photos were great, but because I felt so horrible about the session because she was so manic, I've hated those photos. Like I can look back at them like 6 years later and I can appreciate all the art that was in them, but I'll never book that photographer again because I booked a golden hour and it's my fault, right? I asked for a golden hour session because we all want golden hour, but
Mhm.
Tessa was a hot mess. Like it was, yeah. You know,
A learning
it was
experience.
a learning experience. Yeah, lots of fake smiles and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good times.
It's true though. I appreciate you mentioning that the how you feel in your session is kind of what you remember later on
I
when
think
you look back at them, right?
that's probably the most important thing that I wish every photographer really, really got is
Yeah.
ultimately our photos need to be pretty good, but if they walk away feeling like they had a great time,
Mhm.
there's a lot more leeway with what the photos end up looking
Yeah.
like. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
so much. Yeah, I cannot stress that enough that even when I'm booking clients, making sure that they understand that you you need to like this person. Like you actually have to like genuinely see that you can spend 3 hours or 3 days or whatever it is, whatever type of session it is. And would you say that that's more so for neurodiverse kids?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Because they are super sensitive to rejection. Oftentimes will feel it with their whole body. Um, and honestly, they get shut down a lot in school. So especially if they're a school age kid, they're told to sit down, not the polite version of shut up, like you're talking too much, please behave. So they constantly have that feeling of no one likes me, no one respects me. And they will pick up on that at a photo session so much faster than you can even really process. So being very aware of that kid's emotions and feelings, I actually like to encourage photographers to think and talk to the kid. And there's a ripple effect. If the kid's happy, the mom's going to be happy. The dad or other, caregivers are then going to be happy because they see that's all working. But we naturally talk to the people that hired us,
Mhm.
and that's often the adults. And meanwhile, the kid feels ignored and discounted and set off to the side. And yeah, but if we talk to the kid, then we've got that best friend. And I mean, I think that's why I have so many referrals is and repeats is those kids want to see me each year. They call me auntie. They come
Aw.
back and yeah, I love it. I get to watch these kids from like newborn and on up.
Yeah.
It, yeah, yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, that's the ultimate, like review, right? Is being asked back,
It is.
especially with parents who are justifiably concerned about how comfortable their kids are going to be and how they're going to tolerate it, and how that feels when they go home and all of those things, right?
Exactly. And it I love that you said that because it extends beyond the session because a kid will mask and then the moment they get to the car, they'll have a meltdown. And
Hmm.
you may not even be as a photographer privy to that meltdown or that thing, but if they just masked up and pretended that they were happy the whole time and then meltdown in the car, it might still be okay there. You might have had collected enough goodwill throughout the session to get through that, as a photographer. But if you can make sure that they weren't masking, that they were genuinely themselves, both the parents and the kids, then that meltdown hopefully won't happen in the car and your goodwill is going to continue all the way home. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
how do you approach families then? Do you so because it sounded like it sort of was because we know until we go somewhere else and we're like, oh, it's not like that for you. So how did you start like consciously pulling this into your work? Like after you had gone to that conference, you realized, oh, not
Yeah.
everybody does this.
Yeah. I started really analyzing like what do I do differently? Like a lot of photographers love the big dry open fields because they photograph really, really well, right? You don't have any green cast, you don't have um but there's nothing to do except stand and play in a field.
Right.
And most I like never did sessions in a field unless
I
it
don't
was
do them what they're
requested.
there.
Okay, good, right?
Not
Like
my thing.
it's just it's not fun. I always looked for
Or
places. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, I look for places where kids could do stuff. Can they throw
Yeah.
rocks? Can they jump in the water? And I know you do a lot of the documentary, and so I kind of started shifting. I'm not full I would love to do so much more documentary stuff.
It's fun.
Um, I know, right? And
Yeah.
when I can get families to agree to it, but they have so much shame for like what
Yeah, they
they're
probably have a lot of walls up, right? Like, yeah.
exactly. It
Yeah.
is. It's so hard to like know what you're doing is beautiful and that's where I'm hoping to get with a lot of these families as I've worked with them and we've done great park ones. I'm hoping that I can work with them and capture their kiddo in their environment because that's where they're the most authentic. That's where they're having the best time, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, parks where they can play, parks where they can splash and climb trees is a huge one. Climbable
Mhm.
trees is great. Yeah, and so when I just realized that I was sending kids to these places to do these things and they were able to regulate better. I have a magic question that I like to ask families, and I
Uh-huh.
would love every family to take it and use it, or every photographer to take it and use it.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that helps them open up to you beforehand, so you can set up your session to have just a successful and good time. Can I share it? Is that
Yes,
okay?
I'm just gonna ask, don't leave us hanging.
Yes, yeah. So my question that I like to ask is what I phrase it as at the session, I want you to connect with your family. So I need to be able to lead it. Therefore, and so that sets me up as like, mom, don't micromanage, right? Like, I'm going to be leading the session. I want you to connect with the family. You're prepping that. And I say, so pretend that I'm a babysitter and you're leaving your kids with me for the first time. What are some of their triggers? What are some of their comfort items? What would you be telling a babysitter the first time you handed your kids off? So now that helps them because they don't know you from anywhere and they don't want to open up necessarily because, and I know I've been guilty of this, like you're only going to be with this person for an hour. Why should I tell them my life story? But if you're leaving your kids with a babysitter, they're responsible for their kids for that chunk. So I get so many great answers. Like I get that they're sensory seeking. I get that they um, cry easily if you laugh at them, even if they're doing something that we perceive as funny, they're gonna,
Yes.
like,
Yeah, I've experienced that before.
yeah,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but that lets you start the session in such a better way instead of having that meltdown because now hopefully they open up to you. I've gotten so many great responses and great answers from that. Sometimes they ignore it, but it's we're all busy. But yeah, I leave it really simple. I would really encourage. I get lots of when I do our family photos, the photographers have like 12 questions, and I don't have time for 12 questions. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want one question. You just need to know this, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah. So
Yeah.
if you were leaving your kids with a babysitter for the first time, what do you want them to know?
What do you want them to know? What are the triggers? What are their comfort items? Um, what's the best way to interact with them if they get upset? That
Mhm.
sort of a phrase. Yeah. And I can send that question to you too if you want to.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm gonna link put your links in the show notes because I see that you also have classes, right?
I
You have
do. Yeah.
three kind of a three class flow that
Yeah.
people are, and I mean these are skills that a lot of some of the things that you're saying, like with neurodiverse kids masking, or maybe some of them not masking. I think a lot of these are things that we need to know regardless. And I think
Yeah.
neurodiverse people just they tend to be less filtering, right? Like
Yeah.
we're all kind of feeling this, but they're
Yeah.
like there's less of a filter. So I think it's valuable information whether or not
Yeah.
there are many in in your sphere. But I'm hoping that by hearing this stuff that people will be less uninformed. I don't think people are, I don't want to, the word afraid came out of my mouth, but I think sometimes we get worried about how
Yeah.
you don't want to do it wrong, right? You know,
Right.
like if a
Yeah.
mom or a parent says, my kid has ADHD, like, and you've never had a client like that and you don't know what to do,
Yeah.
then you tend to
Yeah.
worry, right? So,
Right. And autism's kind of a scary word. People will freak out about but if you met my daughters, you wouldn't know that they were autistic. They operate, but they're going to have quirks. You need to give them a warning of uh, okay, we're going to transition to another scene. We're going to move from this, field area to the water in 5 minutes and let them work on that transition. But yeah,
mhm,
I absolutely everything I feel that if we treated every session as a neurodiverse session, every
mhm.
family would have so much more fun, right? It's just an inclusive way as if it works for everyone. It
Yeah, I
doesn't have to
totally
be
agree.
like you have to use these techniques for just your neurodiverse families. It's like use it for everyone and you're going to have a great time. It's a great client experience. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Um, so you front load the session with this very powerful question, and then how do you move through the session? How is that um I don't want to say different. How is it like enhanced? What sort of questions do you or actions do you have that
Yeah.
help these kids?
That's a great question. One of the things, like I mentioned earlier, is I really connect with the kid. I
Yeah.
will make sure that I'm bending, at the beginning of the session. You always want to give choices to them. So and you don't want to give a choice where they're going to say no. So if you first meet them and they're looking shy, you don't want to say, "Is it okay if I take photos of you?" Because they're going to
No.
say no. And then and then if you want to honor that, you're stuck, right? Like the
Yeah.
session's over, go home, bye, right?
Yeah. Right. I
um,
walked into that one.
I know, and I still make these mistakes, right? So I am
Yeah.
so far from perfect, but it's good to have it running in your head so you're better prepared. So my question then when I first meet them is, hey, do you want to take photos now, or do you want to walk around for 5 minutes and get to know each other first, and then we take photos? Which would you like? So you're still letting them know that we're gonna take photos. We can either start off or I'll give you 5 minutes while we get to know each other. So they know like what your plan is. That helps
Yeah.
a lot. Um, and it's my workflow is probably a little bit different too. If you have a really high energy kid, you've
Hmm.
got like 10 minutes before they're done with you and they need to move on and do something else. You've probably experienced this, right?
Yeah.
Like you're in and out, right? So you want to make sure that you get all the photos with that kid in the good lighting. You start your session off with the best lighting possible, because if they want Christmas card photos or such, like you got to get those first thing.
Yeah.
But and that's with the high energy ADHD kids. The
Hmm.
autistic kids though, you got to start quiet. You don't want to come. I'm a pretty like vivacious person. I'll come in with a lot of energy and I have to remember to tone it down. I have to remember to start small energy and meet them quieter
Right.
and not scare them.
Yeah.
So that's a
Is
little
it
bit of
appropriate to ask
if they're
if
diagnosed.
yeah. like leading into the session, like is there a way so that you can prepare,
Hmm.
especially if you're someone who comes in with energy or someone who comes in quiet, and like how do you broach that with
Yeah.
parents?
I use that question as my way of determining it. I look for things like that they'll share that they're high energy, good luck, getting them to sit still. So that's kind of those are some of my trigger or like red flag words, but they're not red flags. It's just what to look for. I
Mm-hmm.
look for sensitive. They say that they're sensitive. Like I mentioned, the one mom opened up about how her son will break down if you laugh at him, and that was really good to know ahead of time. Those will clue me into like there's probably more of an autism trait going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh, if they like everything to be just so, everything has to, or they're happy to correct you. Like those are some of those things that I've gotten based on that question. And I don't ask because that's their world.
Right.
But I think that I will relate. I will often say, oh, my kids are just like yours, so that they know that it's a safe area.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have a friend who has a kid that, like if you don't have neurodiverse in do you know someone who does? 1 in 5 people are some sort of neurodiverse in the country, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm assuming Canada's the same, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, somewhere there. Maybe you're better
Yeah, some
about
of my closest
diagnosing
friends are
it.
neurodiverse. My
Yeah.
my friend, she's the same age as me, and she just got diagnosed like 2 years ago, and it was a really funny experience for her because she's a wedding photographer,
Yeah, yeah.
and she was meeting with her client, and the client's a psychologist, and the client just said, "So when were you diagnosed?" And she was like, "Diagnosed with what?" So
Oh no.
yeah, and she's super quirky,
Yeah,
and like and so then she was like, "Oh." And then she got into a conversation with
yeah,
the psychologist that like, yeah, like you clearly
yeah,
have learned how to function, and she has
yeah,
all of these, and those are things that I've known, like we've been friends for 20 years, and I'm like, "Oh wow, like those are adaptations." Like I mean,
yeah.
it's how you learned to adapt, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, she's same age, and now she's just learning all the different little things that where she sits on the spectrum and stuff. So it's
Yeah,
been it was really fascinating for her.
it's kind of freeing too to realize that like, oh, well, one, I thought everyone did it this way and they don't. Okay. But
Yeah.
then it gives you the grace for that. Like as my daughters are going through like their ADHD checklist, I'm like, I checked all those boxes. Oh,
Yeah.
like, yeah. You start like realizing where they got it from and
Hmm.
but you can also share that wisdom with them too, right? Like, well, I have managed this by doing this. I'm a big checklist person. Everything, if I don't have a checklist, it doesn't get done. If it, like, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I
So
don't,
when did you, sorry, I cut you off.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
you're fine. I didn't know where yeah, go
I
for it.
was going to ask, when did you start comprising this into, or how did you decide to start making this into, because your branding is very subtle.
Yeah,
Like all the things that you're saying in terms of like energy and compassion and things like that. I think those would be clue words for parents who have neurodiverse kids.
mhm.
But the beautiful thing about it is that it's not, I mean, any parent, I think, would be able to read that and think that it applies to their kids without you being like, I photograph neurodiverse families. And I'm sure you could say that as well, and that would be even more
Yeah,
obvious. But yeah, I think I was looking at your website and I thought your branding was very, I don't want to say clever, but it was really intentional without being obvious, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. No, thank you. That's because sometimes those diagnoses are stigmas. Sometimes people have a lot of shame about them. They are not as far on their journey of like, hey, you know what? My brain rocks. My kids are cool and they're going to stick out, and that's all right. If they haven't accepted that, or if they haven't even realized it, that, yeah, those words are things that I think that parents want more of when so that's a lot of my, why I have things phrased that way is if people don't know or like, and I've definitely worked with families and I've come home and been like, yeah, that kid's autistic and the kids and the parents don't know yet, right? Like they'll figure that out later. But I could at least approach this as, they're very particular, and I can honor that in the thing. But I think those words in that branding of having compassion and high energy kids does it's things that every adult that has a kid that meets you can meet their needs, right? But have started since realizing that my workflow is different. I have been much more open about writing blogs on my website about neurodivergent support and how my journey and stuff, and that has drawn a lot of even more families to me, so that way we can start supporting each other. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine they're searching for photographers good with neurodiverse kids or whatever that might be. So
Yeah, and if people are have any um, inclination to support that with their work, I would encourage you guys to put up blogs and stuff about your journey with it, because that's how people are Googling in your area for, photographers with this. And I've gotten, that was the other thing I wanted to share, is I've gotten a lot of people reaching out to me for weddings because I talk about neurodiverse support. And so I'll get autistic brides and grooms reaching out because I'm gonna get them, and they're so much more comfortable with someone that understands them, and it's been so cool. Like
yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And what an evolution, like
Mhm.
because you moved into this genre more or less because you had become a parent and then it became even more, I don't want to say niche, but like
Yeah.
you're specializing with these certain skills and drawing in these families, and now
And it
it's
kind of
spreading
exploded.
out
Like
into weddings. That's really
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that you had a niche?
I didn't really like
Yeah.
I really didn't until that conference, and then I was like, oh yeah, actually I feel like every family that's in front of my lens falls into this category. And then I had,
Mhm.
you know how you'll donate sessions one time for like auctions or such?
Right.
I had one family book me from that, and they were so neurotypical because they didn't book through my website and my flow and stuff. And
Right.
they were a lovely family, but they were almost boring because
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say that must have been so boring.
did everything that I asked him to. I didn't have to get creative. And I was like, oh, this is what
Yeah.
a neurotypical family is
Did you
like.
ask the question? Did you ask the magic question
I hadn't
for
thought
that
of
one?
it then
Right.
when I did that. That was when I was still formulating everything and like,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's where I really started finding how, oh, tend to work always with these,
Yeah.
you know?
So you ask the
Kids.
question, you come in and you meet the kid where they're at in terms of energy. You've got your plan. What is there anything else that people need to be more sensitive to, more aware of as they're moving through the session?
Yeah, be aware of the parents.
Okay.
Uh, our parents, our brains are very broken and shattered because we are constantly on edge about what could trigger our kid.
Right.
Um, so we have this tendency to step back and not engage because we're always surveying what's going on. And you're also going to get the parents that are very critical of the high energy kid. And I feel like that's
Mm,
probably the saddest part of the sessions that I end up with. Is mom is like very typically this is how it goes. Mom is okay with the high energy because she's more of the caregiver, and dad is very critical. Like, sit down, be quiet, stand here, look at the camera. Why aren't you looking at the camera? And it's like,
aw,
I don't
yeah.
care if they look at the camera. And mom has clearly looked at my work, and there's like no photos on my portfolio where everyone's looking. And there might be one or two, but I try to focus on much more of the play in my portfolio. Yeah, so be aware of the parent dynamics. Um, I actually end up with a lot of parent fights at my sessions just because there's a lot of tension in the families.
Mhm.
So that's, yeah, just be
How do you
aware that it's there.
how so once you're aware, then what do you do? Like what how do you grapple with that?
Try to make space for that. You don't want to further enrage like the critical parent, right? Because if
Yes,
you
yeah.
say, oh no, it's okay, then they're going to feel like they're out of control, which was one of the other reasons that it led to putting that in my question of like, I will lead the session. So that's one of the reasons I added that line. But yeah, giving space, trying to engage the kid fully in something else that's going to draw them away. So why don't we go search for a little shell or a rock or a pretty flower to give mom, something that will give the kid space from that energy, because we don't want the kid unraveling, because if they unravel because they picked up on that negative energy, everything's going to fall apart. So it's not always like a surefire way, but I'll try to move the people away. If we're doing a family photo and someone's being critical, I'll break up the family dynamic and try to bring space in however I can.
Hmm.
I'm not sure if
That's
that
a
makes
really
sense.
good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all kind of seen that, even with one of the partners not engaging,
Yeah.
period. It's a similar vibe.
Take the phones. That's the at the beginning of the session, bring your own. I always have my own bag and I have a
Uh-huh.
blanket in, and I have them empty their pockets and I have them put all their phones in it, because dads will disengage and hop on their phone. But
Oh,
if you,
wow.
yeah, all the time,
That's
all the
so
time.
rude.
It is wild. It is wild. And then the mom's pissed because dad's on his phone.
Of course.
So take the phones. I don't want to edit this out of your pocket. Can you just put it in your my bag here? I'll give it to you back at the end of the session.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's
Oh, wow.
it's an hour shoot, guys. Come on.
Yeah, which
But
speaks to our a lot of things about our addiction to that thing. But
it does. Yeah. Yeah.
what else happens? What else do we need to be more aware of, and how can we be more compassionate? And
Definitely honoring their choices. This is something that I've run into with my kid, is if you ask the kid, do you want to go this way or that way? Mom will, say, do you want to go to the lake or do you want to go to the park? Um, Say mom says, let's go to the lake, and kid wants to go to the park. You've got to honor what the kid does, because if you don't honor their choice, they will disengage. They'll shut down. Kind of a lot of those same things that I've said earlier, of they don't feel special, they don't feel honored. Um,
Mhm.
we unfortunately had that happen in one of our sessions, and we never recovered. Right? It's
Right.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, be aware of sounds and where you're picking a park. So, especially autistic kids are very sound and texture sensitive. I have a family where the kid hates having wet feet. So, we always start on pavement and then we end it in wet grass if it happened to be a dewy morning or something like that.
Okay.
Because there's sense, what we think is just a sensory thing that we can get over. It's an all-encompassing feel for them. I mentioned with the fields, like my daughter hates fields because of the itchy grass. She just is so uncomfortable being in those sort of situations.
Right.
Where you're picking the location actually will be a big deal. I would, I don't know. I love backyard sessions for autistic kids because it's where they're used to. I know,
Familiar.
yeah, I know it's challenging as photographers because we have our favorite spots. We know the lighting, we know it. But if
Mhm.
I feel like wedding photographers, you just show up and you have to shoot the venue that they're at and do the best that you can, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's where I love crossing that line into almost the documentary of just doing the backyard, or
Yeah.
in home, and getting them where they're comfortable. But yeah, comfortability is huge. Think of sand, think of itchiness, um, mosquitoes, buzzing, things like that. Or
Mhm.
yeah. So if I get on that questionnaire, if we've picked one location and that questionnaire comes back as like red flags, I'll change the location. I'll be like, I think your family's going to do better at this park.
The magic question.
Yeah, it
Now
really
that
is.
as we're going through this, I'm like, wow, that question really is magic, because it seems so simple,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But no, it plays into everything.
And I'll do it for teens too. Like but I'll acknowledge it. I'll be like, I know your kid's a teenager, but pretend you had to go out of town and you were leaving them, you know, with someone watching them. What would it
Mhm.
be? What would it be like? Yeah.
Mhm. Our kids, neurodiverse kids, when they're going through puberty, is it I love the look on your face. Um, is it amplified in the same way? Is it different? Are there other things that are maybe even more prescient than with the average teen?
Well, So that's a double-edged sword because I don't have a normal kid to speak
Right.
to.
Yeah. To compare it to, right. Right.
I can speak to like our experience. One of the things that we've been challenged with is puberty changed her medication, no longer worked
Oh,
for ADHD. It had a different effect. So
yes.
we're still trying to figure out what if she does want to try, and I always let that be her choice, whether she does or doesn't want it.
Okay.
Um, but there's more social cues that you need to be aware of. So I think that there's so much more masking that goes on, and then
Mm.
it's a draining on them. So it's especially, actually, that's another good point. Time of year and when you book families, especially if they do end up sharing that they're neurodiverse, the beginning of the school year is a horrible time, even though it's fall and it's a
So
beautiful
many
time.
changes.
There's so many changes. I actually do so many more sessions in the summer than most photographers because there's no anxiety from school. It
Right.
is really challenging for the lighting because, we're we've got sun
Right.
all day here in the Seattle area, it feels like.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah, puberty just brings its own, and then you have the sensory issues, right? Like
Its
changing.
own bucket of
It is.
things to be aware of.
And then, but when you can acknowledge it and be compassionate about it, I think
I
it's,
love it. I love teenagers. They're
I know you were
a
talking about
special
that, like
breed.
your teenage project and like
Yeah. Yeah,
documenting
I love
them.
it. It's just there's just so much. It's the crossroads of so many milestones,
Yeah,
like it- like not only like we often just think of body and mood, but everything in your life, like everything, like how you feel, your emotions, like music sounds different, food is different, like how you like fall in love like with your friends and everything is just like cranked to 11, you know?
you were so on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and we were around, or we were around some teens the other day, and my husband's like, "Were we that way?" Because we got together when we were 16, and I'm
Oh,
like, "Yeah,
wow.
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
crazy, crazy." What my daughter asked me today, "How long have you been together?" 26 years. Yeah, yeah, but like, no, we were those cocky teens. We thought we knew
Totally.
everything, everything, but no.
Yeah, even hearing like I love walking past like a group of girls and hearing them like, say something snide or like I hear them talking about judging people and then you'll hear one that'll be like, "No, it's not like that." I'm like, "Yeah, we all do that, because you're constantly testing what's safe, right? And what you're either testing what's safe or you're testing what's not. Like conversely, you're trying to figure out like what limit can I push, which I love it. Like that's how you learn. You have to. Yeah, I got to do that. And the only way to deal with it is with compassion and acknowledging that this is where you're at.
But I also miss having the courage to push those buttons. You know what
Oh
I mean?
yeah. Yeah.
Like, because you get so like, oh, that now we're aware of what's safe and unsafe. So we don't take the steps to do, some of the, I mean, not that you want to go jump off bridges anymore, because,
Sure we do.
okay,
Stacy.
yeah. You're right. You're right. You have your zip
But it
lining and stuff coming up.
yeah,
Right.
totally. But it's true though. Like I
Yeah.
think that's the sad part of becoming adults and this affects our creativity and everything is that we have these expectations that we're supposed to do things in a certain way for a certain reason for a certain amount of time. We're supposed to try a certain number of ways, and if it doesn't work, then you just get put into your shoebox, and this is the lane that you're in. But
Yeah.
it's not. It is not like that. Like we get to choose. Like as adults, we have way more power to choose than we ever did as kids. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we know I think theoretically there's more at risk because you have family or you
Thank you.
have like
Hmm.
you've invested in things, right? Whether that's family or money or whatever.
Right.
Um, but that is why we get bored and we get stifled and people have quote unquote midlife crisis because
Yes.
you stopped playing, you
Yeah.
stopped pushing your boundaries and just accepted your comfort level as this. And that's also, and when you accept a comfort level, your creativity it just entirely bottoms out, right? Like creativity does not come from comfort.
No. No, you were so accurate on that. I was realizing how um, how much I miss like going to art museums and galleries and stuff, and I haven't been as good about that. I was literally thinking that this morning, of like, because that's where you get inspiration. You bring that into your photography, you bring it into like just all parts of it, but you almost, I was joking with my husband, I think my creativity needs some CPR. Like I need to
Oh, yeah.
like
Yeah.
bring it back online with getting some other inspiration. So you're dead on there.
Well, come to my retreat, Stacey. This became a pitch for my
I
retreat.
know. Well, no, I was listening to it. I'm like, I am. Yeah. No, your
Yeah.
retreat sounds amazing for sure, and I hope, yeah, yeah. No,
Well, I see that your classes for photographers, I would just want to really make this such a
sure.
valuable conversation. I want to make
Yeah.
sure that people understand what you're offering and how do they connect with you? How do they dive more deep so that they can be more comfortable and more compassionate and more prepared?
Yes, I love that. So I started a website called ND, short for neurodiverse, ndphotographyed.com. And I've got free resources on there that people can get, like packing lists for what people should ask their families to bring to sessions. And that includes like comfort stuffies and water bottles because parents are scattered and they leave without these things. So packing lists, there's questions on that. I talk about if you happen to be a studio photographer, what are the questions that you should be asking families to help them prepare like for that experience? Because that's a very different experience. And
Right? Because they're in this unknown place inside. Yeah.
yeah, and a lot of autistic kids are very light sensitive. So is strobe lighting actually something you want them to be a part of? And if they're ADHD, are they going to be a bull in a china shop with all that expensive lighting? Right? So some gentle questions on how to get the parents to think about whether that studio experience is going to be a good experience for them. So I've got um, free resources there. I've got classes, absolutely. If you want to dive into how autism and ADHD will really show up in sessions and how you can be very supportive on that. I have a pre-session one, and then hey, you're at the session, now what? What do you do? What are some of the games that are going to be engaging, that are going to be safe? What are some of the verbiage that you can use to engage them and not build in shame? Like I actually talk about my kids can't do ballet and sports and things like that because of their sensory issues. They won't get the leotards on. And I have a lot of my daughter would be an amazing dancer. It's absolutely one of my goals to start a performing arts center that is neurodiverse friendly, where
Oh,
they
wow.
can wear whatever the hell they want to wear and put a sign on them that says, I am this character if they're in a play. Like they don't have to dress like, Scrooge or something. They can just wear a sign, but they can still do the acting. Like, so there's a lot of dynamics in our families. So instead of saying twirl like a ballerina, can you twirl like a princess? Like everyone's seen a princess twirl, right? So clues on verbiage that will be more inclusive, more supporting to them. And now other people may have umbrage with princess. I totally get that, but I'm just kind of sharing some of my kid can put a tiara on, but she can't get a leotard on, right? So
Right. Yeah. Yep.
um, yeah, so I have that. And then if you want just kind of a quick overview of it, I have a master class that's about an hour, just over an hour long, that kind of goes over a lot of things and supporting high school seniors too, because
Oh, wow.
that's
Right. Of course.
yeah, that's a whole nother bag, and I have a whole other bunch of stuff there. But
Stacey, I'm so glad that you've done this. Like, the world needs more Stacey Fiesels.
oh, thank you. Oh,
Yeah, yeah, how helpful.
I hope
You
so. And
know?
I want everyone to have access to it. And really, if yeah, I try to keep
Yeah.
everything pretty affordably priced because I want everyone to have it. I think it's good just to improve your client experience, even if you're not specifically helping neurodiverse people. It's just
Yeah.
good all around stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, it really not only would it make sessions easier, period, but would it would help neurodiverse people without like and kind of without trying. Like these are kind of no-brainers that we we don't really think about because again, we have these expectations, right?
Right. No,
And
you were so on. I loved when you were talking about the like the boxes that we put in because that was the other thing I would encourage photographers to do is be flexible in your timing. Like I will say I'm available for you for these hours. If I know they're a super neurodiverse family, text me when you leave your house and I'll leave because my daughter's had a 40-minute meltdown, on the drive. And if you have an hour-long session, then that
Yeah.
there goes your hour. So it's just being compassionate, being flexible, not feeling so stuck on like our time is money, but we're helping human beings. We're helping individuals that you never know. Maybe it's the next Albert Einstein that you're photographing, and you want them to be proud of who they are.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we
And
just
the other, like with not talking about this stuff, that is what creates the shame, is because
yes,
people, like, not only do people feel ashamed that they don't know this stuff and so then they maybe avoid it, but also when we don't know about it or we don't make an effort to know, again, we just stay in our boxes, and then families feel like they can't, like there's no one there to help them come out of theirs, like education just is the antidote to shame, I think. So,
yeah. No, I think you're dead on there. Yeah.
well, Stacey, it's been a pleasure.
It
Thank you
is
so much for
awesome. Thank
sharing.
you so much for letting me chat.
ND Photography Education, or NT,
ndphotographyed.com.
ndphotographyed.com. We will have that in the show notes, and you can reach out to Stacey to learn more. But that magic question, even if they next session, let's all of us do that,
Yeah,
like
do it.
regardless of who's there.
Hmm.
Let's What a
It
great
works.
way to
It
start it.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, thank you, Stacey.
Bobby, thank you so much.
Okay, have a beautiful day.
Thanks on you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, wasn't she a treat? What a wonderful person and photographer, and bringing this information to people who might, I don't want to say scared, but like not know how to ask. Sometimes we get a little bit nervous about not saying things in the right way, or like not knowing where to go to find out information. Yeah, thank you to Stacey Fiesel for creating these resources for us and for sharing some of her what she's learned over the years working with neurodiverse people. Um, the link to all of her education is in the show notes, so please pause whatever you're doing. Go find her work. She has some free ones, and then she has some really affordable little classes. And with that being said, if you find any value in this podcast whatsoever, I have a little link in my show notes it's called Buy Me a Coffee. And I've decided to do that because um, I've had a couple of sponsors in the past, and it doesn't jive with my philosophy. I want these to be easy conversations, and I don't want them to be influenced by a product that I may or may not use. Maybe my opinion will change in the future, but right now, um, I'm just hoping that you might want to go out for a virtual coffee with me, and there's a link to do that in the show notes. And of course, as always, you're always welcome to email me at hello@bobbybeducation.com, or you can contact me on Instagram, or you can just hit reply on any of the newsletters you might get. If you're not getting any of my newsletters, there's some links on my website to sign up for those. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time to learn a little bit more about yourself and about your clients. And I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful day.